post appealing for peace, or were you praying for peace?
And the same applies to the Kaliningrad.
Yeah, that's a good question. So what do you have to say about that, guys? Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, and welcome to the latest edition of Views on the News. And my panelists tonight to give their views, these opinionated people, include Momus Najmi. Hello, Momus, welcome.
Hi.
And David Orenstein, who's over there across the Atlantic. Welcome, David.
Thank you.
So,
nice to be here.
Absolutely. So here we go with the first item of news that I want your opinions about. Iran. Would you believe that they were appointed, the Iran representative was appointed chair of a UN human rights forum? Would you believe that?
Of course. Of course.
It's the United Nations.
Good record. They have a very good record in human rights. And actually, so does UN. So why not?
Well, you won't be surprised to hear that an international protest campaign from human rights activists say that Iran's record of oppression, torture, and executions make it ill-suited for this post. In fact, the the EU Foreign Affairs Chief, Joseph Borrell, who is on this council, this committee, forum, whatever it is, he defended Iran's appointment as a matter of regional rotation, saying that it was consistent with established UN procedures, because apparently it's supposed to rotate, around the different countries that are on the forum.
Yeah,
But
it's been too long for people with good human rights,
Yes.
to be on there. Let's go on to people who don't even know the concept of human rights. Like, let's make them the head of the council.
Yes.
There's a game in the United States that kids play where there's like 8 children in 7 chairs, and they have to run around.
Oh,
and whoever doesn't sit on the chair gets out.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what they're doing here.
It does sound like it.
Somehow Iran got to sit down. And I, as someone who has worked at the UN, and I think I've mentioned that several times, I have seen the ludicrous insanity that goes on behind closed doors related to religion and giving a pass and all this stuff, and also turning the blind eye to some terrible actors and giving them rights and responsibilities that frankly they don't deserve in the world body. The UN does a lot of good work, peacekeeping, food, all of those things, and that's what the UN is really so important for. This other stuff is just another black eye.
This other stuff, like no matter what happens, no matter which international organization it is or which organization it is, I don't think so they're capable of doing it, because once you take things out of context, out of regional context so much, I think so there's such a huge disconnect that they do not understand what impacts it has, because Iran by right should not even be part of UN at this moment. Their membership should be suspended by what they're doing, but it's because it's so the more global that you go, the more detached you become from the actual regional point of it. And you, like you said, like UN has a really good record of doing the actual things that they do, that humanitarian aid, but once they get into broader sense, social politics of it, then they're
politics.
Lost.
And it's this misguided sense that if you let the most horrific people in, that somehow you'll change them. And really what you do is you let the most horrific people in, and they just whittle down the institution.
You legitimize them as well, because like right now,
exactly.
Iran is being legitimized right now.
Can I play you a video of the actual reaction to this that happened on the floor in the forum? Watch this.
Thank you. United Nations Watch is the next speaker.
Mr. President, we meet here at the United Nations on the eve of the first anniversary of the death of Mahsa Amini while in custody of the morality police in Tehran. In the days and months that followed, in cities across Iran, a mass movement of brave women and men rose up in protest under the banner of woman, life, freedom to demand an end to the trampling of their basic human rights. The Council is aware that the peaceful protesters were met with a brutal crackdown by security forces, with hundreds killed and many thousands injured and arrested. On November 24th, this Council met in urgent session and condemned Iran's arbitrary arrests, excessive use of force, torture, enforced disappearances, and sexual abuse of women protesters. The Council is also aware that the two journalists who first reported the death of Mahsa Amini, Niloufar Hamidi and Elahi Mohammadi, are still in prison, and that thousands of schoolgirls were hospitalized for poisoning by toxic gas. Therefore, Mr. President, we have to ask, on what basis did this Council appoint the representative of the Islamic Republic of Iran as chair of this UN Human Rights Council's social forum starting on November 2nd? We ask the United Nations, how can you elevate and celebrate a government that beats, blinds, tortures, and rapes women for the crime of demanding their basic human rights? Where is the logic? Where is the morality? We've published a draft resolution to cancel this appointment. We today urge this Council to adopt this resolution and cancel this appointment.
Wow.
He spoke well, didn't he? That's
Very
Hillel Neuer, who is the leader of the executive director of UN Watch. So I don't know what the update is on that. It was supposed that they should become chair on the 2nd of November. It's now the 12th. So maybe they did, maybe that resolution that he proposed succeeded and their appointment was cancelled. I'd need to research to find out the answer to that question.
I mean, it's a huge blow as well, because like right now they're protesting over there, so in the middle of their protests and their sort of revolution against this
Yes.
Iranian regime, in the middle of that, they're being legitimized by the UN. It's just so ridiculous.
There you go. Yeah. You won't get any argument to that here. Okay, so elsewhere. In London, to start off with, but it's pretty much global. Tens of thousands of protesters have joined rallies and sit-ins calling for an end to Israeli attacks in Gaza. Now, before this, we've just had the Remembrance Weekend. But before that, Metropolitan Police estimate there were 30,000 protesters in central London and in Edinburgh and Glasgow at the rail stations and in Charing's Cross. People sat on the ground, stopping travellers from catching their trains. 29 people were arrested for offences including inciting racial hatred. 2 people were arrested on suspicion of breaching the Terrorism Act in connection with wording on a banner. 1 man was arrested for making anti-Semitic comments in a speech. Another person of inciting racial hatred. 3 people on suspicion of assaulting a police officer, and so on and so forth. This is ongoing, and that's just the London side of it. 1 man who arrived at the Palestine protest in London carried a Hamas are terrorists sign on his pole. He was attacked. And anti-Israeli protesters climbed the historic fountains at Trafalgar Square. Nothing sacred, is it? So what do you say about that?
I mean, this, because it has happened since it has been happening since few weeks, and they were this week there were 300,000 protesters, pro-Palestine protesters. But you know what? I'm inclined to call them anti-British protesters rather than pro-Palestine protesters because of how they are behaving. They don't care about the people in Gaza. There's so many incidences from their protests. There was a 1 man only that they recorded but obviously his sentiments would be shared by a lot of people who didn't just have anti-Semitic views. He actually said that Hitler knew how to deal with them.
Yes,
Right?
yes.
This is what we are dealing with, in the guise of, oh, they want ceasefire and like blah 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 stuff like that. No, if people wanted ceasefire, then they would be peaceful. If they wanted ceasefire, they would not be throwing fireworks at the police and blinding them. If they wanted
Yes.
ceasefire, they would not be anti-Semitic and would not be calling for the death of Jews. If they wanted ceasefire, then they would not be singing from river to the sea, right? And if they wanted
Yes.
ceasefire, they would not be like, they would not have banners. Like there was a banner in there which basically had a tree with two coconuts that have fallen down, and the faces of the coconuts were the prime minister and the home secretary. So basically saying that these people are coconuts, like they call me as well, for being for not falling in line with how you should think as a brown person. So
Yeah.
there are so many things that are wrong with this whole protest. And this and they attack people who are wearing poppies. So they attack
Mm,
people just for wearing poppies. Like, what are you going to surmise from that?
mm,
That's why I'm calling them an anti-British protesters, because they're not pro-Palestine protesters.
Mhm.
They
mm,
just have a way, and various different groups have combined together within this. There's a high element of communist in there. There's a high element of a lot of different organizations that have combined together
mm.
because they're anti-British, and then they can, there was a banner as well, which said, "Are you on the white side or the right side?" And on the
Uh,
white side, it had the flags of Britain, Israel, America, and one more I can't remember. So it's sort of like, what are we doing over here? These people
mm.
are, they and even if there were 300,000, they're still a minority. But they need, like, it. Something needs to happen, because this is like destructive for the whole society.
Yeah. Well,
Well said.
yes.
Mm,
I mean, there's not much to add. I mean, people have a right in a free and democratic society to protest. And people do have a right in a free and society to hate as well, which, so much of it is religious based, on either side of the wall of Gaza. Um, but violence is not the solution, and hatred is not the solution. It calls to mind two things that happened in the United States. One which was really funny, and one which was a little sad, where this woman who's a Palestinian drove her car into what she thought was a synagogue because it had a Jewish star in it, and it turned out that the place was actually the Hebrew Israelites, which are these black radicals who are anti-Semitic. but this woman just saw the Star of David, and so she drove, in her hatred of Jews, she ran her car into a building full of people who already hate Jews. And the other thing, very sadly, was in
I hope her car was wrecked.
yeah, she did significant damage. And this is the blind hatred that I can't understand. And it has nothing to do with my own progeny and where I grew up and who my parents just happened to be. I've been searching for peace, for a common humanity since I could think it, you know. But the other thing that happened, and it was really sad, was an attorney in New York City was
Yep.
going around and ripping
Yes.
photographs
Poster.
of
Yes.
missing Israeli children from
Yes.
a light pole, and she was caught. And she refused to, when she was confronted, why are you doing this, right? And again, if you want to protest and you think Israel's bad and whatever, fine. You have a right to speak and gather and all those things, constitutionally protected. But to be ripping these things down, and of course, it made the social media, and she lost her job, and I think rightfully so. So, Momus, I couldn't agree with you more. I don't know if anybody here doesn't have blood on their hands, even people like us who hope to see a better world where we're not judging each other by our external characteristics,
or our belief systems,
or our belief systems. Exactly.
Yeah, but
Well-
this is the thing. Like we have welcomed sort of a thing illiberal ideas, and I think so. Both whichever political side anyone might be, they need to call out these
Yes.
extremists from their sides, and I think so. It's about time that the political left has to distance itself from the communists, because they're enabling so much hatred and so much division within there. There was a stand within that protest. There was a stand for the Communist Party. And
Mhm.
within that, they were promoting on the magazines and stuff. They had made a Star of David, and in the middle of the Star of David, they had put a swastika on there.
Yeah.
So
The
these
left
people
has
have to
always
people. Yeah, sorry,
yeah.
go on.
No, please. I don't mean to interrupt. But knowing as much as I do about the quote unquote left in the United States, is that there has been an ongoing uh, uh, anti-Israeli stance, mainly because of colonialism, and the idea of, well, who should be here and who shouldn't. And of course, they've chosen sides. And the thing, and I think the minute you choose sides, you lose your integrity,
Yeah.
because you're no longer looking for reason to help each other get through this, especially you're 5,000, 7,000 miles away while
Yeah.
you're doing
You're
this.
just looking to confirm your biases.
You're trying to confirm your own biases.
Yeah.
Exactly.
and disrupt society, divide society. Yeah, and you weren't here last week, guys, but we had a clip from some preacher. I wonder if I can find it, who was doing that very thing. He was in an imam, and he was in his mosque, and he was saying, "You've got to choose a side. Which side are you on?" So that's deliberately dividing humanity,
Right.
needlessly. Because I mean, my point of view here is that since there is no evidence for any God, all religions are fallacious.
Right.
So I mean, we've got enough real reasons to disagree and argue.
Right. There's a lot of reasons to hate each other. Why do we need to throw religion?
Some of us have more water than others, for example.
Right.
Yeah. But so we just don't need a bogus one, do we?
Right.
Yeah. I think it's also a matter of tolerance. I think so has a limit, and I think so in these instances that limit might have reached, because it's sort of like, okay, everyone has free speech and whatnot, but people who are not recognizing the game, they don't want to play the game with us. I mean, I don't think so we should let them play anymore. I mean, it's these people who are clearly, like, from British point of view, say people who are clearly anti-British, people who are actually putting posters and saying in the protest, let's burn British flags, people who have every intention of their religious or ideological intention to take over Britain. I think so there is a point of like, okay, how long have we got to tolerate these people till we don't have a country anymore? Or do we need to decide that there is a limit, that there is a point, like within the immigration framework, that we do not actually let people in, and we deport the people who don't want anything good for this country and who just want to create chaos? So it's sort of like, people who are basically ruining the game for everyone should not be allowed to play anymore.
We need some seriously acting referees and some VAR. That's what we need.
Yeah. I mean, I know in the States there are clauses like you can't migrate or immigrate here if you're choosing to take down, the country.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it's very simple. Like if you're radicalized to that level, then and there have been people in the United States who have been deported because of that.
Yeah.
But
that needs to happen just more, basically.
yeah.
Yeah.
You need to get tougher. Yeah.
Yeah.
So before we get on to the lighter items of news, I'm afraid you may remember an Iranian human rights activist was recently awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. She's a laureate. Nargiz Mohammadi. I'm not sure about the pronunciation, but that's the best I can do. So she's in Erin jail. Is it Erin or Evin jail? And that's in Tehran. She's been sentenced to Evin prison. Yeah, she's been sentenced to 12 years on charges that include propaganda against the Islamic Republic, and and she has frequently expressed her opposition to compulsory hijab wearing and to the death penalty. Right. So she's in her jail, and she's not very well. She's 51. And according to a representative of civil activism and women's rights, she has blocked heart veins and needs an angioplasty. But she's being refused hospital treatment because she won't wear the headscarf. They say, we've got the medical capability to sort you out, but you have to put your scarf on first.
I think so. UN should give Iran like lifetime membership of human rights, make them the head for it, and use this as an example case of why they're doing
it.
It is thoroughly ridiculous, isn't it? Eh? I mean, doctors swear an oath that they're to help people, no matter what what their opinions are or what their attitudes are.
Yeah, the doctors are afraid of being shot.
Western doctors do that.
Yeah. If you're an Iranian doctor,
Muslim doctors have an oath to God first,
right.
And and that's it, nothing else.
Religion is in itself a form of totalitarian violence. All organized religion and disorganized religion, and so this is, you would consider it the extreme, but in reality, this is the logical outcome of patrilineal or ancient views that are not anywhere near, dare I say, the 18th century, let alone the 21st century. The violence makes you want to throw up because it's violence against women, it's violence against children, and all religions, Judaism, Christianity, they're all doing the same job because men mansplain. So the whole idea of the hijab, men created that stuff. As long as people and men are in charge, so you combine who's in charge of the philosophy, who's in charge of the power, who's in charge of the military, mix that with religion, and you shake it all up, and you get an Iran, or you get the Vatican, or you get, in greater or lesser extent, these megalomaniac theistic or countries that see themselves as on the right side of history.
And it's not, as I was saying earlier, it is the protesting that's going on at the moment for one side or the other of the Gaza conflict isn't restricted to any particular geographical area, because I expect David, that the White House in Washington, D.C. had some people attacking the fence. Some
Oh
were
yeah,
climbing.
I was down there last week in DC when that was happening. When I was at my meeting at the Smithsonian.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right. You were doing a great job there, by the way,
thank you.
working in your humanist cause. Yes.
Yeah.
So some were climbing over the fence, or trying to climb over it, and some were fighting with the secret police, secret service.
Mhm.
And I have a video that I'm not going to show you because it's just full of obscenities, mostly women's voice shouting F words and denigrating the defenders of that precinct.
Mhm.
There was a
But
New
there
York
you
as well. This guy was pulling down the American flag, and
Mm.
I was like, well, how long are Americans gonna just watch that, no matter of which political leanings?
go.
You know,
Mhm. Yeah.
that is like, yeah, that is a high crime to do that, to take down the flag and desecrate it.
Well,
Well, these people,
this symbolism. Yeah. Go ahead, John. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, these people were all wearing a head. It wasn't a headscarf so much as a head covering of checkered. What we call a tea towel, and it was they were wearing that, and they were
Yeah,
anti-Israeli. So you won't be surprised to hear that.
yeah. And they're actually, you know what? They're not anti-Israeli. They're anti-Jewish. And this sentiment is Islamic. It is deep down, and it's not like a lot of people say, oh, it's just extremist. It's actually not. It's actually a main philosophy to be this much against the Jewish people. It's just the moderates only say it, and the
Mm,
extremists actually do something against it.
yeah.
That's the only defining reasons within there. And the
Mhm.
moderates who are actually not against it, they have to work really hard to deprogram themselves from
Yes.
hating Jews. So
Yes.
it's such a, that's why you see all the chants everywhere in this pro-Palestine, protest, which are anti-Jewish. They just hate
Mm.
the Jews, and they're looking for Jews. Like even over here, they're protesting outside synagogues.
Mm,
They painted blood. They threw blood on synagogues and stuff like that. It's sort of like, this is not about Israel. It's
yeah.
not about that's what people keep on getting it wrong, or some of the people. It's
Well,
not about
there you
territory at all.
Well, you have you have such terrible actors. I think it was in Ohio, or somewhere in the Midwest, where that landlord attacked
Yes.
a Palestinian woman and her child, and murdered a 6-year-old
Yeah,
boy
Yes.
because they looked Palestinian, and I think they
yeah,
were Palestinian. So the rise of hate crimes against both Jews and
Yes.
Muslims in
Yes.
the United States, which were
Yes.
always up there, have gone through the roof
yeah,
because of this thing about people have taken sides.
Mm,
What Jews and I think most Arabs don't realize is they're equally hated
yeah,
by the people who would love to send them both away.
yeah, yeah.
You
yes.
know?
Yeah.
But like, one difference I would make in there is that the Jewish community would be against that guy killing that child, right? So they,
Yes.
they would come out, and they would put out statement against it. They would distance themselves from any of the rabbi who would be saying or doing something like that, or any
Right.
Jewish actors would be saying like that.
Right.
You don't have that equivalence within Muslims. They're not coming out and saying, oh no, actually this was bad. What
Mhm.
I have now is on social media, these same Muslims and the far left people sending messages to me, and
Mhm.
either calling me coconut or stuff like that,
No.
or then
I'm
telling
sorry.
me, oh, why are you snitching? When I
Yes.
put out that it's like, so you're concerned that I'm snitching, that means you endorse that message.
Right. You admit it.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
They think it's right to have loyalty towards weird extremists.
no,
No,
no.
my loyalty is towards the human race.
Right.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And you can see there was a summit as well, the Arab summit that happened recently, where they had put out like some provisos in there, which meant, oh, are we going to discontinue our relationship with Israel? Are we going to take in Palestinians refugees? Are we going to tell Israel to stop attacking Gaza and stuff like that, overwhelmingly they were on the side of Israel. All the Arab states, which included Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, UAE, Egypt. They were like, no, what Israel is doing, let them do it, because it's for their benefit. They don't want to discontinue their relationship with Israel, and they don't want Hamas. And they know there's no other way. There will be casualties, but
and they
there's
don't
no
want
other way.
Iran.
No, that is
They're
a
threatened
even
by
bigger thing.
Iran.
That is even a bigger thing, and this is
Absolutely.
why international organizations don't make any sense, because just like UN has given Iran a human rights council lead, in the same way FIFA, which is the football organization, gave the last World Cup to Qatar, and Qatar
Yes.
is the main sponsor of Iran and of Hamas as well. All
Yes.
the Hamas leadership is there. This is why it's sort of like, why are you legitimizing these people, which are actually the main reason of Israel is not the cause of regional disturbance. It's Iran. It's Iran and it's the Hamas that are doing it, and Hezbollah. All of these. Yeah, it's crazy.
So lightening the mood, I'm afraid, guys, because we've had enough of this negative stuff, haven't we?
Yes.
This is.
Otherwise, I'm going out the window. So.
I hope you're not on a high floor.
I'm on the first floor, so it's not.
Oh, that's okay. You might survive then. Yes. Well, first floor in America is the ground floor, isn't it? So
yeah.
We'll step out. Yes.
Sorry, I forgot. I forgot who I'm talking with. Yes.
Yes. So this is a lighter item anyway. Tarot readings. You know, there's since religion got into decline, since the nuns started to grow in number, people have been casting about for a replacement, and they've alighted upon spirituality. And so in Pennsylvania, apparently there's a really ancient local law which is anti-fortune telling. It doesn't normally get imposed on anybody, but recently the Pennsylvania police have issued a warning to, believe it or not, an outfit called a metaphysical store. I'm not sure whether this metaphysical store is just an abstract idea or whether it's real, but that's what it's described as.
So they're selling crystals and triangles and all this
pyramids and stuff. Yeah. It's called Serpent's Key Shoppy and Sanctuary, and it's in Hanover. And they've been threatened. They've been told that they could be fined or prosecuted for offering tarot readings to their customers. And the response from one of the tarot readers, who declined to be named, said, "Everyone's talking about it. It makes me wonder if I still want to work in this industry."
Well, you know, if they could really see the future, maybe they wouldn't have gone to Hanover to do this.
Yes.
In New York, the law is, because I've studied this, believe it or not, that if you want to do tarot card readings or tea leaves or read people's hands, you can't get a license. You can get a license because it's classified as entertainment, meaning that it might be spiritualist to the end user, but in order to, because you really can't see the future, so the only way you can be licensed to do this, and you must have a license to do this in New York State, is if you agree that what you're doing is providing a source of entertainment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah. Even though while you're doing it and the person who might be coming to you is doing it for spiritual reasons, you couldn't perform the act unless you agreed that your business was in the business of entertainment and not religion or spirituality or anything like that. Which makes me think all organized religion, all houses of worship, should
Yeah, they should.
get that same license.
Yeah, they should
So
sign
it's
up to that.
all, you know, whether you believe reading your leaves or reading this, you know, religion is the same thing, except it's been operationalized and accepted as true.
Yes, yeah. Get them to sign that license. Absolutely. Yeah. Finally,
Entertainment.
guys, there's a little bit of good news, because in Poland, the Catholic Church is grappling with a significant decline in its following. There you go.
Very big
that
for
a-
Poland.
I actually had a conversation about this with my wife, who's Polish, and
Yes.
with her
Mm.
family and other people as well. So I think so. This is a very huge misrepresentation of what is in the news. There has been a decline in people who are going for mass, but it's for different reasons. It doesn't correlate to people not believing in Christianity, or not even believing in Catholic Church. There's a lot of things that have happened within Poland in the past few years, with a lot of scandals coming up of Catholics,
Yeah.
Catholic priests, and stuff like that.
Mm.
And they are going through a phase as well, where it's a lot of younger generation um, that are not going for mass now, but eventually when they grow up, they will go. So we are catching them at a point of time when it's a transition period. Because if you go in Poland, like I usually go every now and then, there is no sense that people are leaving Catholic Church or Christianity behind. There is discontent with Catholic Church, and I think that because they're not saying it's dropped from, I think so, 38% to 29%, the people
Yes,
who are going for
that's
mass.
right. Yes.
But they're not saying what is that missing percentage, where are they going? Because it could be like some of those missing percentage are just not going, doesn't mean they stop believing in it. They just stop believing in this branch of Catholic Church and stuff. Also, it might lead for Catholic Church to make changes as well, which the Polish public has wanted for a while. Like there's
Yeah.
some changes they want, or they might go towards more Protestant nature of it, because they are finding Catholic Church too restrictive for what they want. So I would say, like, it might seem like they are losing hold of it, but because there's a lot of Polish traditions that are tied in with the Catholic Church, not just with the Catholic Church, but with Christianity itself, it's hard to separate them for it. And I like, because I'm not an atheist as such, so I would be against that as well, because a lot of Polish culture and a lot of Polish traditions and stuff are tied in with the church. So it would be a matter of finding a balance, and taking that out of the political sphere. As long as out of the political sphere and the influence is out of the political sphere, then it's fine for people to go or not to go. But I don't think so. That decline is a real indicator that people are leaving Christianity. I think so. There's a younger generation that are facing a crisis of identity at this moment. But as soon as when they have kids and they have to baptize the kids, they're straight in the church. Like, so this,
Really?
yeah. So this is a transition period as well. And also we have to remember, like, the people who are reporting this, this particular drop and stuff, they're very heavily, like, if you see their political spectrum, they would be too much on the left. So they are also trying to create a narrative, because they're not giving a full picture of where that missing percentage is actually going.
Okay. I'm hopeful, though, from my perspective, that this is the start of a trend.
Right.
So we have to wait for the next assessment of this decline before we can say that.
Right.
Anyway, guys.
I know in let's say Northern Europe, and my friend and colleague Phil Zuckerman, when he did this book Society Without God, he spoke to people who basically in like these northern countries in Europe where you guys are, said, yeah, people might say identify as quote unquote Christian, but what that means to them is a good person. Like they don't go someplace and they don't
practicing.
They're not practicing at all. In fact, they're more humanist than they are religious in their day-to-day experience. And yeah, when they have children, they might go to the church to baptize them, but that's it. Like, there's no other connection other than the ritual itself. Yeah,
that's right. Well, I was raised in that sort of state where I was christened, not baptized. Christened. There's a difference in the amount of water involved, apparently. but because you're immersed if you're baptized, whereas if you're christened, you just got a drop on the forehead. So I'm used to that lip service level of attention being paid to a religion, and I think it's a move in the right direction.
Yes. Yeah.
Guys, you've been fantastic.
Yes.
Thank you very much. It's come to the end. I like to end these shows in 40 minutes, otherwise we'd lose the interest of the audience.
Okay.
So thank you very much for coming. Hope to see you again next week. And look at the celebratory.
Where did that come from? I didn't. My hands are right here. I don't even know how that happened.
Where are my balloons?
I think you've got a hidden child in that room.
Wow.
Anyway, thank you very much, and thank you, viewers.
All right. Thank you. Bye bye now.
Bye.
Say bye bye.
Russell was the Pope appealing for peace, or was he praying for peace?
And the same applies to the carry-on drag.
Yeah, that's a good question. So what do you have to say about that guy?